Welcome to Pure Hustle Podcast. I'm Mike.
And this is Orlando, and we are on episode 46.
46. Yeah, it's amazing we're at 46, but it's kind of a bummer that and such a monumental episode is 46. We've got such a terrible thing to talk about.
That is true. But you know what? We got to be real. We've always been about being real.
It's true.
And being relevant too.
Yeah, and this is definitely really real, really relevant, really raw. And as you guys see in the title here, man, thrift stores. I feel like this podcast was built on garage sales and thrift stores were like a first love of mine, and I see it crumbling down around me.
Even before garage sales, huh? At one point,
garage sales have always been like a money making first love, but even as a kid, like going to thrift stores and just finding cool stuff. I don't know. I've thrifted so much in my life, and it's almost sad to see like at this era of my life kind of coming to an end.
I hear you. And you know, I've been talking about this lately. Those of you that have been following us on Instagram, like especially these last few Saturdays that I've been going to garage sale, I've been talking about like, I think I'm done with thrift stores.
No,
and I think we've come to a place that we're done.
Yeah. Well, before we get there though, let's talk a little bit about thrift stores and kind of the golden era, as it were, of
golden.
thrift stores.
Was there ever a golden era?
I mean, I've only been doing this reselling thing for a little bit, but I feel like I was in the ending of the silver era, maybe, right? Is that how that goes with comic books? Or
the end of Pax Romana, like right towards the end?
Just moving towards the end.
Okay. All right. So thrift stores, I remember that was one of my, like you said, it was one of the first passions. Like, I'll never forget back in the day, like this was years ago when I first started getting serious about reselling. Like I would watch Thrift Hunters with Jason T. Smith, and he had a co-host that was on his show. And you know, this was basically, I'll never forget, and I think I've shared this before, where, you know, I would watch Storage Wars. And then there'll always be, you know, on A&E, they have those like little ads on the bottom, like coming up next, you know, it's this show, blah, blah, blah. And you're like, you're kind of intrigued. You're like, I don't know. Like, do I want to watch this show? And then I remember with Thrift Hunters, it was one of those things where I'm like, oh, do I need to get back to the mic?
Yes, please.
Okay. All right. And so I would see Thrift Hunters and I'm like, no way, this is real. So it was a show by these two, Jason T. Smith and Brian Goodman. And they would go to thrift stores. And I remember going, you know, I'm going to watch this episode. And I was like, this is not real. Like, and so I watched the first episode and they were in thrift stores and they were making money. Like, I remember the first episode, they had like this, what do you call those, older, like, I'm trying to be PC here, like stuff that older people wear, attire that's really glitzy. You know what I'm talking? Sequins.
Oh, yeah, sequins.
You know what I'm talking about?
Sure. Is it a politically incorrect?
I don't know. The older generation like wears those kind of items. Okay,
gotcha.
And I remember they sold one, and they you know what they would do. Wow.
What who?
That's so bad. Okay. And we don't edit that, right? So you're gonna keep that under great.
That's right.
Okay.
Who would what would huh?
All right. So they would go to the thrift stores, and then at the end they would show like, you know, how much they paid for it and how much it sold for on eBay, right? And I remember seeing this sequence like jacket sell for a lot of money, and then I remember Hawaiian shirts, and I go, that is so cool. Like, there's actually money to be made in thrift stores. And then I remember they were talking about on the show about why they prefer thrift stores over garage sales.
Wow, that's intense. That must have been the golden era of thrift stores.
It must have been. And they said because thrift stores are nice because everything is in one location.
That's true. That is a huge benefit.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Sure,
like,
yeah.
So you don't have to go house to house and like you pretty much you kind of know what to expect.
Right.
Right. And this was, you know, I'm taking a look here. Like this show was on back in 2014. Right. So it's been about 5 years, right? Right at the time that I started reselling. So I loved it because back then, like I could go into a thrift store and I always found like sweet deals, right? Like I could find a Rain Spooner and it'd be like, you know, $6, $8, $10, and there'd be a few of them, right? And usually, like if there was a boutique section, it was usually stuff that no one really wanted.
Right.
Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah, for sure.
It was like high end stuff, but it wasn't like resellable. Tell me a little bit. So before we move on, so that period of time, like I really didn't go to garage sales. Like I really went to thrift stores a lot, and I was hooked on that show because it motivated me going, I could go into any thrift store and I'm going to find not gold per se, but I'm going to find things that can definitely make money, and it's going to be some cool finds. So is that kind of what kind of got you hooked a little bit into thrift stores right away?
I mean, that was part of it. Part of it too was just the nostalgia of going back to thrift stores, because there was a long period of my life where I didn't go to thrift stores.
Okay.
So I grew up as a kid. I did a lot of my like school shopping for clothing, all that kind of stuff at thrift stores, which, there were times where I cared and there were times where I didn't, especially because there's this thrift store where we lived that had this special that if you spent $20 on a Sunday at the thrift store, you got a 50% off coupon that could be used within the next 2 weeks.
Oh, that's nice.
And it's 50% off your entire order.
Okay.
And so you'd go back on a Sunday and you'd spend at least $40, which would turn into $20, and you get another 50% off. So I'd go like every 2 weeks and we would spend like $20, which was actually $40. You know how many clothes you can get at a thrift store? And at this time, it wasn't like the boutique style pricing, which we're seeing now at so many thrift stores. It was like 99 cents a shirt, $2.99 for like a jacket, right? Like everything was inexpensive. And so I did a lot of my school shopping. Then my mom used to go every single week to get her nails done at this nail salon, and right next to the nail salon was another thrift store. And so I'd always beg to go with her. And I'm like a junior hire, because I would take like my $15 allowance. I'd go into the thrift store and I'd find like Nintendo 64 games that I didn't own, or like things that like I'd always just like look at stuff, right? Especially that was about the period of time I was starting to get into vintage audio. And at that time, you can get tons of like really high quality vintage audio stuff at thrift stores. So there was just this period of my life where I was at thrift stores every week, not for reselling, but just for me, right? Nice. Sometimes I wouldn't even buy anything. I just like to look at all the junk. And then I went a long time without going to thrift stores. So once I started reselling and I had a reason to go back into thrift stores, it was good, right? And so I was going in, I was making money. And it's...
Are you talking about like 6 months ago, or are you talking about even before that?
Yeah, no. Like it's crazy. Yeah, things are changing so quickly. Because like 7 months ago, 8 months ago, going into thrift stores for reselling has been a huge sell. Especially, I mean, there was a thrift store near me where I would say at least twice a month they were doing dollar clothes sales, where every single clothing item was for sale for $1, right? And so even if we didn't get there early that day, there were times where we'd go an hour before closing, and they've been open all day with this $1 sale close. Or sometimes it's like $2, and we would still walk out with bags full of items that we could list on eBay or Poshmark.
Yeah.
And it's just not happening anymore. The prices are outrageous.
And I remember that because you would come to me and like, man, we keep getting inventory. Like and this was only like 6 months ago, not that long ago. I mean, I can go back 5 years, and I remember I could pick up shirts for like $5. This is only 5 years ago, right? And I could pick up dinner boots, like sometimes they'd be 20 and sometimes they'd be, sometimes I'd get lucky with 10 or 15. So there was still higher. It wasn't like this, nostalgic age where everything was cheap, but you could come in and you wouldn't feel like you were getting fleeced every time.
Right.
Right. And I remember this one store really close to where I used to live. Well, where I still live. And I could go there. I actually would go there every day.
Yeah. I mean, that was for sure one of your honey holes.
Oh, the store I'm talking about. And every day I would always find like nice stuff to resell.
Right.
And I would say it was like that probably until we started the podcast. And even a little bit into the podcast. And now I will only go to that store maybe once every 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah. So, I mean, that goes to say like there's...
Well, let me tell you why though. Do you want to finish your point?
No, go for it.
So what I'm learning now is that, and it's not like Goodwill hasn't done this. I mean, we've talked about articles from like through 2005 where they were researching eBay and pulling stuff that was going to make more than $50. But, stores like these, some items they kept out there because they knew that like their customers coming in would keep coming back because people would want these items. Now it's like either A, everything has been pulled, right? All the good stuff is gone, right? Or B, now whatever has been left has been super marked up, right? And so it's kind of, I can't explain it, but it's one of those things where, and I know some people are going to talk to us and go, well, they're just a business. And, if you went to the Nike outlet, you wouldn't complain. Right. And I think there's value to that. I think there's truth to that. But the reality is I don't know. I'm kind of struggling because I feel like years ago, and maybe this is my perception, but more people were willing to go into thrift stores because they could get like items that they needed.
Right. Well, I think too, part of it is because that's true. Like I would never blame or be upset with Goodwill or Salvation Army or any thrift store if they're making business choices that are best for their business, right? Like that's what they're there for. That's what they're doing. They're business. They're making business choices. And so I would never say like, oh, they're a business, like because they're not catering to me and doing stuff for me, like I'm upset. What I'm saying and what I think a lot of resellers are pointing out is resellers are a big part of their customer base. Mm-hmm. And so
I think it's bigger than we know.
Yeah, I think it's huge. And so it's possible that they've got this idea that they're making a good business choice. And time will tell. Maybe they are. Like maybe we'll look back 10 years from now and say like, man, thrift stores used to be good and now they never are and they look just totally different and that's just the way it is. Or maybe this is a phase, right? Like maybe this is a cycle that the thrift stores are going through and they could turn out and recognize that, hey, this model that we're choosing and testing out with not putting, pulling some items and selling it themselves online or marking up everything to the point where one, resellers aren't going to be customers and then their typical customers aren't going to be happy about paying those prices, then they might look back and say like, oh, this model isn't working for us, right? So I think that's what's going to happen. I think they're making a mistake. I think that the model that a lot of the thrift stores, at least in our area, are going towards is a model that they think will be profitable, and I think time will say it's not.
I think you're giving them too much credit. I think I'm not. I'll give you an example. So I walked into Goodwill like 3 weeks ago, right? Actually, let's go back. Let's go back to some examples of why I'm done with thrift stores. So when I can go into a Goodwill and there's a pair of used Birkenstocks for $79.99,
yeah,
that's like outrageous.
Yep.
Right? And it's not even outrageous for, hey, Orlando, like they're trying to make money. I'm like, whoa, okay, but I can go to DSW and get a pair for cheaper than $79.99.
Yep.
Right? And I know my stuff. So I researched it and those weren't even worth $50. Like brand new, they were worth maybe $60. Okay. And then I go into that same store, right? This is one of many. I go into the same store and they have this jacket that has been there back in June. It was listed at $125. Okay, I go in there in February. They upped it to $150 and it still hasn't sold. And then I go to their boutique rack where it's Coach, right? It's a middle winter, right? And it's San Diego, so it's not that cold, right?
Right.
But every single coat of theirs is listed for, they're trying to sell for $50 to $80. So I'm going, okay, at this route, I'm better off going to the outlets.
Yeah, for sure.
Right? Because if I'm going to drop that kind of cash to make that smaller margin, I should just be going to outlets. I should just be going to this other discount stores. I should, there's various other avenues I can take my money to. Right? And then I went to... I thought this was just this one store. And then I go to another store and somebody, I had people alert me that like Goodwill is changing. And we're not just talking about Goodwill, we're talking about all thrift stores, but I would say Goodwill in San Diego is a major culprit.
I think we should say like it's typically chain thrift stores. If it's not a chain thrift store, the model looks a little different.
It does. I agree. The mom and pop stores,
Right.
like they're legit.
Right.
Like I definitely,
but like the man, we're talking about the man of thrift stores, like
So-
the establishment.
But here's the crazy thing. So, I look at Craigslist Hunter. By the way, congratulations, Craigslist Hunter. If you're listening to us for hitting 100K on YouTube, I just saw that. Definitely well deserved. Like, you've been providing so much value. And he had a video a year ago. I think over a year ago that like he was done with Goodwill, or he went into the store and the prices were outrageous. So this is a year ago, and this is the Midwest. This isn't even San Diego. This isn't San Francisco, or LA. And, the prices are outrageous. So going back to the store that I go to, they knew there was a rodeo in town, right? So all their boots were like 35 to 50 plus. And they weren't even like Tony Lama. They weren't even like good brands. They were just boots. So I'm going like, okay. So obviously they're trying to establish themselves as retail, which if they want to do that, that's all good. Like I'm good with that. Like you said, we're a business. But that just means I'm going to go somewhere else.
Yeah. And I think, and the reason why I said, I think that they're going to eventually realize this model isn't working. I mean, and I could be wrong. Like if this model works out for them, good for them, right? Like they that was a smart business choice. But I think they're going to chase away most, if not all, of their reseller customers. The other customer base, which is the other complaint people often make about people who go to thrift stores and buy things to flip, and they say like, well, why is it fair that you sell it for so much and that the thrift store doesn't? One is thrift stores providing a service or trying to provide a service for people who don't have the same expendable income, right? Like if they're buying used clothes or used items at a thrift store, it's not often because they're looking for like a really rare item, but they're just like, they just want clothes, right? They just want shoes. And so if they're pricing their stuff so high, not only are they hurting their reseller customers, but how does that help that customer base, right?
I agree.
It just doesn't. And so they're gonna lose customers there. They're gonna lose customers. And we've already talked about, so I don't wanna like go over it too much, but selling on eBay, we're reaching a wider audience. We're basically doing the personal shopper job for other people. And that's not the service Goodwill is providing. Now, if that's what Goodwill wants to do, and they want to sell things on eBay, which I know they do. I know thrift stores do that. Great, but you can't charge eBay prices for items in the store because you're not reaching the same market.
No, agreed. And so I see what you're saying. The economics doesn't work. The other part that's been kind of interesting was I have point blank asked managers, like, why is this listed? And they'll go, oh, I don't know. Just somebody in the back. Just like constantly passing the buck. Mm-hmm. And I'm just like, okay, like, do I really want to, I don't know. It's hard because these thrift stores, like some of them help out a lot of people, right? So we're not saying like, hey, we're not going to thrift stores anymore because, we don't believe in the mission or what they're doing. We're going because in the end, like, I'll just be out there. What matters most is my family.
Yep.
Right, providing for my family. So if going to the thrift store is going to hurt my margins and not allow me to provide for my family, if I decide to go a different route, then I'm just not going to go back.
Yeah,
it's just not worth my time. It's not worth my money. And there's another part of it is just the anxiety of it.
Yeah,
I don't know. Am I being weird now?
No, I mean it, and maybe
it's just frustrating when you walk in and you see these prices and you're just like,
yeah, the prices.
Why do you even walk in here?
The prices are frustrating, especially because part of the thrill of thrift stores was you can look through racks and racks and racks of junk and then find something and you're like, yes, finally. And then you look at the price and it's like, nope, right? Like they're charging $20 for this, and I might be able to sell it for $25. Like if this was a typical $2 shirt or $5 pair of shoes, like okay, I'd pick it up. But when they are charging so much, then you're spending all that time. You get that momentary like, yes, all of my work has finally paid off. I have found the item, and then you can't even get it. It's like they're like, here's the item. You finally worked to get it. Psych. We're charging you too much.
Well, and then there's, and I'm being real here, like there are people I know that have picked up items and at the register, they were told that was underpriced and they've raised the price.
Ooh, no way. I'd fight that.
Yeah, no, so would I. And I go, wow, like that just speaks volumes.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's not customer service based.
No.
And I don't know. There was a time where like I looked forward, like, I would plan my routes and I go, hey, I'm gonna go this store, this store, this store. And I would, like you said, I'd enjoy my time because I knew that, yeah, there would be high price stuff and that would bother me a little bit. But I knew that in time, like they understood that they need to have items in there to get people in the door to buy. Right. And right now, I think I think we're going to send everything online because we're going to profit more online. And so for me, it's like, okay, you want to profit more online? Then that's fine. I'll just, I'll make profits and give my profits for you somewhere else.
Yeah, no, exactly. And maybe that does work. Maybe if they're doing the research, they're listing and they're doing the job that we would be doing. Great. At that point, they're just becoming online resellers. But then again, they're basically at that point making the claim like we are now the resellers. Resellers aren't our customers. So if that's the case, if that's the model they go with, then it kind of pushes us out the door, which, like you said, I think we're a huge market for them.
Yeah. And I would say, that's not the only reason. Thrift stores aren't the only reason, like, why I'm looking to move on from thrift stores.
Thrift stores aren't the only reason you're looking to move on?
What did I say?
You said thrift stores aren't the only reason I'm looking to move on from thrift stores.
Correct.
Interesting.
Well, it's the market too. Right. And the reason I say that is because, like, right now, and we talked about this in our previous podcast, like there are other major brands or other stores and other competitors that are looking to dip into the secondhand market because secondhand market is definitely exploding.
Yeah, I think that's part of it. But before we get on to like that part, what do you think about? How would you answer people who claim that like people like us doing podcasts, putting stuff on Instagram, are the reason that thrift stores aren't a viable option for resellers anymore? Like we're the ones telling eBay or telling Goodwill and Salvation Army, like, here are the items that people are coming in to buy, and now they're going and selling them themselves.
I would say that assumption, you put me on shaky ground. I would say that assumption is false. The reason I say it's false is because I've said this in many podcasts, is that the playing field is level for everybody. Everybody has access to eBay completed sold. Everybody has access to Keepa.com or Camel or the Amazon seller app. Like everybody has access to the same tools. So the reality is there is so much out there. Like, and we share our bolos like every episode. Okay, when we share our bolo, number one, we're only sharing to 100th of the percentage of people in the United States and international. You know what I mean? Like the number is so minuscule what we share. And even those that have 100K subscribers, like that's such a small portion of the population, right? And then on top of that, what they're sharing is such an even smaller portion of inventory that's out there, right? So is it possible that maybe like the Tommy Bahama market or the Hilfiger market or whatever market, maybe it has tanked a little bit because of resellers? Sure, I think there's some validity to that. But overall, no. I can tell you from very personal, encounters with other, I know people that work at Salvation Army and Goodwill and these other thrift stores that they're in the back, they have their phones and they're researching.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I was going to say too is our podcasts range from like an hour to 2 hours. So the likelihood that the Goodwill Corporation is spending time listening to our podcast or other people who are like us who are putting YouTube videos out. I mean, there's some that are like only 5 minutes long, but a lot of them are like long format things. Spending hours and hours and hours to get those handful of bolos when they could just if they spent that amount of time researching the items themselves, right? They would already know it, right? So yeah, I think there may be some market crashes, like if some big YouTubers were to say like, go out and buy anything that you see that has a Tommy Bahama sticker on it, tag on it, doesn't matter what it is, buy it, and then over the next year, every single Tommy Bahama in thrift stores gets bought out. Yeah, thrift stores might say like, maybe we should charge more for this.
Yeah, and I think that did happen with Tommy Bahama. I mean, Tommy Bahama at one point, you could buy them at the thrift store for like $5 to $8, and next you know they're trying to sell them for 20 to 30. And even now, the market has tanked, they're still trying to sell them for a lot of money.
Yeah, so it's almost like they benefited from it for a little bit, like all the resellers who were still paying up high prices because they upped the price, but now that market has crashed, like the Goodwill and Salvation Army are actually a little slow to rebound on that.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's what's happening. And it's not to say that they don't. Like, I know some YouTubers who have, been alerted that their videos are being shown every time an episode drops at a local Goodwill. Like, it does happen. It does happen. But again, it's one of those, there's just so much out there. In the end, how much work does it take to just type in a few words into eBay and hit completed sold? It does not take a lot of work. Right. And so, and this is another reason why we say, like, there's plenty for people to go out and resell, right? Just because we share information doesn't mean everybody's gonna go out there and do it either. Right. So let's run the scenario that every thrift store listens to Pure Hustle podcast and they pick up on every single bolo. That's great, but that doesn't mean that people are going to be out there looking for this either or buying it, and they're going to miss out because there's a lot of stuff that we don't share that, stores still find out. I'll give an example right now. So,
well, once you give it, then it's no longer an example. Whoa, that's kind of meta.
That is true. But, we've talked about, we've talked about cricket, right? Like the cartridges and stuff.
Yeah, you have. Even though when we very first started this podcast, you said,
yeah, that was something we were never going to share.
I'm not giving this one away.
Yeah, but it's been so much on Instagram and on YouTube. And you know what? I went to a thrift store. Remember, one of my biggest hauls a month ago was a bunch of cricket cartridges that they sold to me for $3.99. And I've easily already made over $500 on that haul, net profit. So even though other bigger YouTubers have shared that was still something that was missed. So I definitely don't believe that social media and YouTube is the downfall of why prices are high at thrift stores.
And it may be a contributing factor, but I think we have to recognize that. And Reezy actually said this in the episode that we were on with him a couple of weeks ago, was this idea of like somebody's gonna spill the beans, right? Like somebody on YouTube, somebody on Instagram, somebody's gonna spill the beans. And, for better or worse, like there are a lot of problems with technology. And I think we can probably point out to like all of the problems that cell phones are causing with like teenagers and us. And it's really easy to do, and how technology is hurting the reselling community. But then it's also like, but it also helps a whole lot, right? So it's going to happen. This is the world we live in. And so there's only so much you can do about it, right? Like, I don't think you'd be able to say like, okay, well, nobody's ever going to talk about reselling on social media again. And so we have to recognize how do we operate in this landscape, given that might play a fraction of a percentage or a portion of the current climate that we're seeing with thrift stores.
And again, going back to, it's not because of thrift stores themselves, it's just a changing market. Like right now, clothing is so much easier to produce, right? And at the same time, there's so much out there already. And right now, the cool thing is vintage clothing, like the secondhand market. I don't know, Macklemore's thrift store song, right? Whatever it is, like...
You like popping tags? Is that what you're...
No, but what I'm saying is that ultimately, like, the thrift stores have caught on that this is a market, and people have seen that, you know what, it's a cool thing. So they're willing to pay up for these items. So it really, you could do all the research in the world. You can use eBay completed sold. You can listen to podcasts. You could do YouTube. But that's where the market's at right now.
Yep. Well, so what do we do about this? If this is the world we're living in with thrift stores going down the drain, what do we do?
You don't go to thrift stores.
So like
we're done. That's it. So podcast over.
We're gonna. I think we should get signs, picket signs, and every reseller should stand outside of thrift stores and say, "No more thrift stores."
We should have shirts that say "Thrift stores, game over." I'm joking. All right. No, listen. There are people that never step foot in a thrift store. And I will tell you myself, over the last, I don't know, 2 months outside of my trip to LA with Sell Quick, Ship Quick, I've maybe gone to, and here's what's
Would you mind if I interrupt you for a second?
Yeah, sure.
I'm only interrupting because I'm sure some of our listeners at this point are like excited to hear what do we do now? How do we beat this system? How do we still turn a big profit with thrift stores being out of the question? But I also just want to like make it clear that when we say we're done with thrift stores are done. Like we're giving up on thrift stores. We're never going to actually 100% give up on thrift stores, right? Like
just 99%.
Maybe not even 99%. I think this is saying more than anything is we need to, as resellers, be adaptable, right? We need to be fluid. We need to be willing to
be able to flex. But even though you tell me it's flexible.
Yes, we need to be flexible. To flex is to like.
He gives me a hard time all the time.
Like, step up to somebody. Like that's to flex. You're flexing on somebody. Right. So you need to be flexible. You need to be fluid. You need to be willing to pivot and recognize that markets change, right? That as a reseller, it is very easy to get, and I've noticed this myself, where I get into a groove where it's like, I want to sell a certain thing. I want to look for certain things. I want to look for that certain thing at certain places. And that strategy might work for a week, a month, 6 months,
a year.
But eventually that strategy is not going to be as profitable. I mean, there's times where I tell you something and you're like, oh, that market was really big several years ago and then it crashed, right? And I'm thinking like, oh man, so it's probably going to crash again, right? So I think more than anything, what we're saying is right now, thrift stores, the reality is, at least for us, and maybe where you're at, this isn't relevant. Thrift stores are still amazing. But I think that what we're seeing pretty much nationwide is that currently thrift stores are getting harder and harder to source at and to make great profit on as easily. But there's still going to be those finds. Orlando says all the time, every thrift store has its weakness. It's true. If you're not going occasionally and you're not checking, you're going to miss those weaknesses, and those weaknesses change, right? Like for a few months, it might be pants, and then they get rid of that person, they hire somebody else, and now their new weakness is shoes, right? Like there's always going to be a weakness, and it might be a few months, it might be a couple of years. Who knows how long thrift stores are going to be on the down, but this is an ebb and flow market, right? Like things are going to go up and down. So as we talk to you and explain to you, like, what are the best strategies you can use to operate in our current market? If you're noticing struggles with thrift stores, or you just want to expand your inventory sourcing, you want to expand your niche, you want to grow your reselling business, just recognize that thrift stores may be at a lull right now, but that doesn't mean that's always going to be the case. I think we'd be foolish to say, never stepping foot into a thrift store again.
No, agreed.
So please don't take that from this podcast. We are not advocating that you stop thrifting. We're advocating is be flexible and know that there's other ways to make money as the market changes.
Agreed. And before we move forward, if you haven't had a chance yet, make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Hit the thumbs up if you like this.
Yeah, smash the like button. Is that what all the cool people say?
Yeah, and if you don't, still smash it and hit that bell button to get notified. If you're listening to our podcast and you haven't jumped over to our YouTube, we'd appreciate it if you just hit that subscribe button. It opens a lot of doors and it suggests our video more to others. And on our podcast side, if you're feeling kind and you have some time on your hands, writing a review on iTunes or Spotify definitely goes a long way, and sharing it, hitting that share button on YouTube or on iTunes or on Spotify or on Anchor goes a long way to, bring value to others. And also you can follow us on Insta. We're always dropping knowledge on Instagram every day. We are Pure Hustle Podcast. On Twitter, we are Pure Hustle Cast. On Facebook, we are Pure Hustle Podcast. And if you ever want to share some knowledge or have a question, you can always call us, 619-738-1170. That's 619-738-1170. Or shoot us an email at purehustlepodcast@gmail.com. And as always, if we provide value to you and, you want to help us out in a monetary way, there's always that link below for a one-time donation or a monthly donation. Is always appreciated. We're thankful for all of you. And even if you we appreciate the fact that you take the time to listen to our podcast or watch our podcast.
Yeah, I think, is this the part where I do for the cost of 1 cup of coffee?
No, we're not going there.
You could give Mike 1 cup of coffee
There you go.
to keep him up while he's doing podcasts.
There you go.
So yeah, we appreciate that. And yeah, so if you're noticing that thrift stores are maybe in a dip in your local area, hit the like button on the YouTube. If you notice that thrift stores are still going great in your area, hit that like button and let us know. That way we know how things are going.
If you notice the podcast is going down, hit that like button. All right. Anyways, hey, thank you guys. So let's talk about how do we beat these thrift stores so we don't have to step foot into thrift stores.
Put up your dukes. We gotta figure out how to beat these thrift stores.
So serious.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So
I'm serious when it comes to making money.
no, so am I.
Yeah.
100%. This is why we're Pure Hustle Podcast.
Serious. Making money. Thrift stores, you let me down. How do I win? What do I do?
You get the stuff before they ever walk into a thrift store.
Ooh, I like that. So like when people go to drop stuff off at the thrift store.
That's one way of doing it. I'm not suggesting that one, but that is one way. I'm not
like stand out there with money and as people walk up, like, what do you got in your bag? I got some cash. That's a terrible idea.
I'm sure it's a crime or something.
That's probably a really terrible idea.
So no, but it's the idea. It's out there.
It's a idea.
Not recommended.
It's not our idea.
Encouraged by Pure Hustle Podcast, but it's an idea. So the reason I say this is you have to beat the thrift stores at their own game. So there's a few ways to do that, right? Because thrift stores, it's kind of easy, right? Hey, donations, come bring them, right? For us, it's like, well, how do I get a hold of Orlando or Mike? How do I get these items, right? Because I'm pretty sure a lot of people just are looking to get rid of stuff when they donate, right? They're not going like, I'm going to do my charitable good deed and I'm going to donate this. They're more of like, hey, this stuff is, taking up space in my garage or in my kid's bedroom or whatever it is.
Or leftovers from garage sales.
Or leftover from, or bad buys as a reseller. So, and a lot of this is common sense. A lot of you that are experienced sellers, you probably have done this for a while. So hopefully we bring value by maybe pointing out something that you might have missed. Or if you have something you'd like to suggest, hey, hit us up in the comments below. But the first thing is use the local game to your advantage, right? There's different programs out there that you could put like keyword searches on all of them. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, like, are you just talking like
on Craigslist or OfferUp or Let Go? There's searches, and those that have been reselling for a long time, like about these searches.
So it's basically like you're basically doing online arbitrage, but just through the local game, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. And so right now, and I don't have time to delve into all of them, but there are programs out there, and there's even apps for like Craigslist that you could put, hey, if these certain keywords pop up in a listing, like notify me.
Yeah, and I've played around with, and I haven't really done much with the local game stuff. I have a little bit. I've only done like local game to local game flips, but I think it would be, and let me know, Orlando, if this is a good idea or not, as I'm just kind of thinking about this. So when we talked about in our garage sale episode, you had like a running list of keywords that you search for, right?
Correct.
So in addition to that, I've tried before. I'm like, okay, so let me think, what would this look like? So I've looked up iPads, right? iPad 3, iPad 2, whatever. It pops up on Craigslist.
Correct.
And there's all these prices, and then there's all these conditions, and some of them are 8 gigabyte and some of them are 32 gigabyte. So I think the key is to have a handful of items that you're kind of specializing in, and that you know what the price is, what your bottom line price is for each one of those items. So if it's an iPad 3 with 64 gigabytes, I'd pay X amount. And then that way, and when you see all these other iPads pop up, you're not worried about those prices. You're worried about a specific type for a specific price, right? So you got to know, and I think it would take a little bit of time to develop that list of like specialty items. But if you started with something you already are familiar with, that would probably help.
No, I agreed. I mean, one of the easiest ways on Craigslist, they have a save searches function. Now, I haven't done this in a while, but it's not as fast as other programs, and you can Google and find stuff out there that works. But just to get the email notification like, hey, here's some results. Here are some items that fell under your keywords, right? And so you get to those people right away, right? And I have sourced a lot on Craigslist. I know we joke about how antiquated Craigslist is and how, it's no one goes out there, but it's still there. There's also and let me give you another tool that I haven't, I've used this, but I haven't used it as much as I should. There's a IFTTT. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Mm-mm.
Okay, so just look it up. Just type in IFTTT and Craigslist, and then I'll just read it what it says. It says perfect for being first in line for competitive, for all kinds of different markets or getting notified. So there's different ways to get. Now, I haven't done this one in a little while, right? Because I've been more doing the offer up and let go because I find that more people are on there. But it's also to your advantage that more people are on those because some people ignore Craigslist. And so there's not a lot of eyes on Craigslist. So sometimes you can get deals. So I've had Harley hauls come out of Craigslist. I've had Hawaiian shirt hauls come out of Craigslist. I've had electronic hauls. I've had speakers. I've had Bose speakers come out of there. I mean, before they ever get to the Goodwill or before they ever get donated, that's one way to find stuff.
Yeah,
but it takes work.
Yeah, it seems like it takes a lot of work. And I was going to ask too, so besides just putting in the work of knowing a handful of items or maybe a larger than handful of items, and knowing what the prices are that you're looking for, have you seen, and I know you've seen it, and I'm sure some of our listeners or all of our listeners have seen this, but have you tried this and what do you know about the people who put up the advertisements on things like Craigslist? And it's like, for instance, cameras. When I'm looking up cameras and I type in, I don't know, certain Canon, 5D Mark III, right? I put that into Craigslist and more than half of the results I get are we buy cameras. Yep. And then like a million camera names are spammed in the description and they're trying to buy used cameras and they're like, sometimes it's just a picture of somebody like holding a bunch of cash. So it's like, look, I've got cash, I'll buy your stuff. Have you tried that? Is that successful?
So I haven't done it myself, but there are people I know that have been very successful at doing it. I kind of go back and forth on it. I think so. I do it a little differently, and I'll explain a little bit how I do it. But the people I do know that are successful, they'll do like, "Hey, do you need your stuff hauled away?" Now, you have to be willing to take it all. I think that's one thing you need. Or you may get somebody that you put something that I do partial estate, right? And so you say, "Hey, I'm willing to, I buy certain goods," kind of like American Pickers, on the show, how they have their list of items. So you can put your list of items like, this is what I'm looking for, and people will contact you. You know what? I did do that for Harley for a little bit. And I had some people contact me. But you always got to be careful because it could be sketchy. Like you don't want to carry out a bunch of cash.
Yeah.
Right when you go to a location. Usually you want to have a conversation about what's there and agree to some terms on certain things. You can't agree to a lot because it's sight unseen. Right. But yeah, no, those ads definitely help. And people do those ads on OfferUp now and on Let Go. And it's like all over the place. But even though it looks like spam, it does work. I know people that do it and it consistently works. And maybe some of you that are listening do. So let us know in the comments.
Yeah, let us know because it'd be something I'd be interested in trying if it's effective. Like, what are your strategies? What are you guys doing? Yeah, because I'd like to see if something like that. I always think of all those people when I put in a certain camera. Right, like there is a specific camera. The camera I'm using right now is called a G85. It's a really neat camera. It is not a very common camera though, right?
Okay.
So I had to look up so many Craigslist ads. I eventually bought it on eBay and it was never available. All the other Lumix cameras in that like model range were available, but this specific camera was almost never available. And I'd always see those ads and I'm thinking, man, these ads are the ones buying up all these cameras that I want. Right. And so I'd love to see if I could be that person that's picking up these cameras, right? Or picking up whatever it is. So yeah, so let us know if you've used those types of ads. What do you do? What are your secrets? I'm sure I could just YouTube it and watch, but I'd love to hear from you guys.
So kind of what I do along those lines is I won't put an ad, but I'll find stuff that like is in certain niches that I like buying in. And what I'll do is I'll go on OfferUp, and on OfferUp, there'll be a certain item, and then you can go to like their username, and then you can click on all their offers. So then you get to see everything, right? And so what I'll do is
make use out of one trip.
So what I'll do is I'll pre-bundle things before I ever show up, right? So the other day it was crazy. There was one that they were selling like all kinds. They had like Harley stuff. They had like a pair of Carolina boots. They had some Pendleton stuff. They had just a bunch of stuff. So what I did is, and unfortunately this one didn't work out because there were another reseller. So It was obvious when I give them a certain price, they weren't willing to take it. And again, I want to tell you, like, this is one of those things, like, for every, it's going to take like 30 to 40 no's, maybe 50 no's before you get a yes.
But at that point, the yes better really be worth it.
100%. Right. But I already have a template ready to go. Like, I already have a template like, hey, I'm really interested in multiple of your items. I'm willing to show up tomorrow. I'll pay cash. These are the items I'm willing to pay. And this is what I'd be willing to pay. And that's it. And sometimes people are like, you know what? Yeah, come on over, and I'll do this on Let Go and I'll do this on OfferUp because, if they have, let's say, a video, let's say like the other day, somebody was selling N64 games. So they had a couple posted. And that's all you saw because some of their other listings were really old. And for whatever reason, they got pushed down in the OfferUp search. And so when I went to other offers, I saw all these other N64 games and I was able to compile them and offer them and get a bundle. You know what I mean? So that is one way to get the items before they ever get donated. Now, you got to be careful because there's a lot of resellers, but that doesn't mean the deals aren't still there. All right. So let's talk about that a little bit. Networking with others. And you know what? That means two things. That could mean either one, a garage sale person, a thrift store person, or that could mean another reseller, right? So give you an example. Somebody today on IG said, they were actually in one of our comments, they said that they couldn't go to garage sale, but they went to Walmart and they had let the person know at Walmart that they're a reseller. And the person said, you know what? Hey, my husband buys storage units, but we end up keeping a lot of the stuff. And you know what? If you're interested, you can come to our storage unit and you can buy from us. Think about that. Like, we always talk about, like, sharing that you're a reseller is a good thing. Do you have a business card yet, Mike?
Not yet.
All right. So that's one of the recommendations I have too, is that all the time, like, I'll go on OfferUp or I'll go to a garage sale and people are trying to offload stuff. And if they have a lot, I will give them my business card. And I can't tell you, and I've shared this on many podcasts, how many times people have called me and said, you know what? We have all this extra stuff. We were trying to hold out. We wanted to give it to Goodwill, but you know what? We'd rather get some money for this. Why don't you stop on by? And they know that you're like the last stop before they donate. So you're able actually to get a pretty good price on items.
Yeah. And we jokingly talked about before this idea of, standing in front of a thrift store before somebody drops it off in their bin, right? Like, obviously we're joking, but a lot of times you hear at garage sales, people say, I was at one garage sale and I wish I would have had a card or would have talked to the guy a little more, but he had all kinds of music equipment and he had a bunch of surfboards and skateboards and a lot of, like, stuff that was out of my price range that I just didn't know enough about to do the research on. Like, I'm not going to drop $150 on items that I'm like, I have no idea about music instruments, right? And I made a comment like, yeah, I hope you sell everything. I bought like a pair of pants from him. And he's like, yeah, if I don't, whatever I don't sell is just going to Goodwill. Right. And I'm thinking, like, kidding me? Right. Like, surely not everything, right? Like, only a handful of things, but that would be a good time. Like, hey, before you do that, like, I'll haul it away for you.
Yeah.
Right?
Like, if
I'll
nobody comes by
Goodwill
at the end of the day and wants to buy these, I'd be interested. I can come by the next day and we can see what we work out.
Yeah. Either a deal or say, like, if you're going to be taking these to Salvation Army or Goodwill, How about I take it and I'll take some of the items for myself that I want, and whatever I don't want, I'll give. And you might be able to get items for free that way.
No, I've done that. I did. There was one where somebody said they had all these books and they're just like, yeah, we're not going to sell these, at the garage sale just because they're not much value. We're just going to donate these. And I said, well, what if I take all of them? So I literally stacked up my pilot with books, and there were a lot of profitable books in there. It was totally worth my time.
And then whatever's not profitable, you still take to the Goodwill. And so you're still providing a service both to the thrift store and to the person and for yourself. So it's a win-win-win.
Agreed. Now, other resellers. So I'll give you an example. So a few days ago, I had another reseller who specialized in women's clothing, right? But they had a lot of men's cowboy boots that they had, I don't know if it was friends of the family or somebody had given them to sell at their shop. So they had a brick and mortar store and they had all these buckles. And they got my name through they got my name through a manager of a thrift store who knew that I was friends with, and said, hey, I know Orlando likes to buy these things. Why don't you contact him? So she texted me and said, hey, I have all these boots, I have all that. I'm willing to sell these to you for this price. And sure enough, I had a major haul.
Hmm.
I mean, I picked up, I think like 20 buckles and 5 or 6 pair of boots for a decent price, and I'm going to make a decent amount on them. Right. So, and you see this all the time on Instagram. There's some people that buy huge lots and it's more than they're willing to deal with, or they buy, they get like 4,000 units and they don't have time to process all of them. So they're willing to, sell them at a lower price, a buck or two or three or four or five each. And you're still able to make $20 or $30 on each of those items. Right. So before it ever gets to the thrift store, before it ever ends up on eBay, you're able to pick those up. Or I'll give you one more example. Sometimes there's other resellers that are just done.
Yep. I've gone to a few garage sales where that was clearly the case.
Yeah.
And not necessarily like eBay resellers, but like, this looks like a swap meet booth. Like I'm literally standing at a swap meet booth and he's like, I can't do this anymore. I'm done with this life.
And you can buy that out.
Yep.
I mean, and you could have inventory for a long, long time, right? And we talked about that before. Like you got to strike when the iron's hot, right? Because, there's going to be those times where you're not going to be able to go out to a thrift store or out to garage sales or anywhere where it's good to have those inventory reserves of items to be able to list. That makes sense? Did I miss something there?
No, that's good.
I definitely would use social media and use social media within your local area, right? So right now, there's a few other resellers I've connected with ever since the podcast that, sometimes they'll contact me and they say, hey, Orlando, this isn't my thing. I don't care about this. Would you want to buy some of this for your own eBay store? And then if you find this, can you let me know? And I've been able to source a lot of product that way.
Yep.
So it's definitely out there for you.
Yeah, that's good. I need to do more networking for sure.
Yeah. And again, I know networking is hard. It's not easy. You got to get out of your comfort zone. I would say business cards is the easiest way to network because even if you're introverted, at least you have a card that is very clear. And I would make sure on that card, this is just my own opinion, you don't limit it to like just a handful of items. You just,
reseller,
buy, sell, trade, or whatever it is. Because you never know what you're going to come across.
Yeah. And it's easy enough to make like a Google phone number, right? That if you don't want somebody having your personal phone number or maybe your personal email, create a little business one, right? Like have one set aside that's specifically for your reselling business and have a phone number for it and have an email for it. That's what I would do. That's what I'm going to do.
I agree. Now, here's a new one. And again, a lot of people, have you sourced on eBay before? That sound weird?
No, it doesn't sound weird. I know. I'm trying to think. I've bought a lot of things that I've basically gotten a steal for on eBay, but never for reselling. Part of the thing that holds me back from that is just the fear of how much time it's going to take to be looking for the deal. And I feel like a lot of times those steals come from auction, right? Like not always, like sometimes it's buy it now, but it's just like the game of like, am I going to be able to time this right? Am I going to be able to get it? Am I looking for all the right items? But again, if that was part of my routine, if I spent a half hour every day looking up like 15 items and I just spent time, I'm sure I'd find killer deals every once in a while on at least one of those.
I think you'd find a lot. There are some people that just resell from sourcing on eBay back to eBay or sourcing on eBay and to Amazon, like all the time. And I've done a ton of that because you got to remember, like, I don't know what the number is, but I don't think there's a huge, like the majority of people on eBay aren't resellers, right? They're just people that had stuff.
I don't know if I'd say majority, but many.
Okay, whatever. Anyways, there's a huge chunk of people that sell on eBay that are just trying to offload stuff, right? So they know they can't, they're not going to get a lot on garage sales. So they know that local, they may not get much, but maybe they'll get just a little more on eBay. But they want to sell it quick or they don't have enough knowledge about it. And what I do on eBay is I put save searches. So I'm looking for specific things I really know I can make good money on. So for instance, there was a certain snapback at a certain point in time that I could flip for $50 that people would post and sell on eBay for $8 all the time.
And the other thing too, we talked about it one time with buckles that you talked about. If it's a small enough market where there's only, I don't know, a handful of them, if you buy all of them that get posted at a certain price and then you list it for a higher price, you're controlling the market on it. Now,
Right.
I'm not recommending doing that, but I'm just thinking about the last episode. I talked about a very unique board game that I bought, and there's only like 3 active listings on eBay right now, and there's some solds that are pretty high. And I just were to think like, okay, these are occasionally selling. If you buy every single one that gets listed, this would be a gamble, so I'm not recommending doing it. But if you bought all of them that were listed below the price you have yours at, and then you relisted those at your price, you own the market on it.
Yeah,
100%.
Yeah. And so with the save searches, and one thing you could also do is put in misspelled word save searches. Right?
That's genius.
No, and I'm not the only one that does that. There's a bunch of other resellers that do that. But I have gotten some good deals because what happens is no eyes get on that item because it's misspelled. And eventually they keep dropping the price and boom, you go in and you buy it.
Do you find that your number one eBay arbitrage sales are from auctions or from buy it now?
I do. That's hard. Right now it's buy it now. And the reason it's buy it now is because I move in on it fast, right? Because with an auction, there's some time for other people to notice it, and it's hard. Now, I will go to eBay and I'll put, if I really want to, like on Sunday nights, I'll put ending soonest, and I'll put in the keywords for the item I'm looking, and then I'll start looking, okay, which of these are going to end soon, and I can snipe it right away, right? And there's sniping software out there to do that. I like buy it now because it's not as stressful. Right, I see it and I pick it up. So, for instance, I have picked up certain kinds of Hawaiian shirts that not many people know that they go for that much money. So they'll list them like even new with tags for like $12, and I flip them for like $100. Right now, it hasn't always been the case. I haven't done it as much as I should, just because right now I'm in the middle of garage sale season. That's the next thing we'll talk about. But I have definitely, I think. If you're part-time, there's definitely an ability to just source strictly off of eBay if you play it right. Right? Because you think about it, there's a lag time between you getting from your home to the thrift store.
Yep.
But the lag time from you going from your chair to your phone is a lot more, right? So within that 20 minutes, you could already have found some items. No, it's not that easy. It's work.
I think we already talked about some of the anxiety being in thrift stores. So I think one of the things that holds me back is the fear that I'm going to spend an hour every day looking up these items that I know I could potentially make money on and just never finding a good deal.
No, I agree. But eventually, once you know certain niches, you will find those deals. There's always bound to be. Like right now, I have 3 or 4 niches that I'm constantly looking. And I would say at least once a week, I can find a few deals. So sometimes I'll move on them. Sometimes I won't. It all depends on how much inventory. So if I'm low on inventory, I'll move on it.
And the nice thing is when that item comes, it should technically already be packaged neatly in a box with all of the wrapping, right?
Go, yeah.
Not that you would store it that way just because storing is harder, but you can kind of be like, well, I know when I need to pack this up, I definitely have a box that it'll fit in.
Well, you could even take it next level and take the pictures, but I wouldn't do that. I would take my own pictures. Just saying.
Just literally just copy their entire post over. Like literally, this is the item I am selling,
and for more money.
For more money.
So, and I will say I've had people message me going, "Hey, I just sold that to you, and you're selling it for more."
Like, yep, sorry.
And then I just
suck a.
Well, see, I was even going down that road, but yeah, I will block them, and
you'll block them. Oh man.
Oh yeah. Well, because,
no joke.
Well, I mean, I don't know. You know what? The reason I'm hesitant is our garage sale 2 episodes ago. I think I got a little controversial with that Bose.
Yeah, man. I'm gonna be honest. I listened to that back and I'm like, Orlando, that's messed up, man.
Messed up.
A little bit messed up.
Business.
It's business, but it's a little messed up. Well, if you haven't heard, you got to go back and listen to our garage sale episode and chime in. But be nice to Orlando. We're all humans. We all make mistakes.
No.
He's not a perfect. He's not a perfect person. He's not a perfect person.
The person.
He's a human.
We both got there at the same time. He wasn't.
Go back and listen to it. It's a good story. And if you wanna realize that Orlando isn't always the nicest person, you get that episode will be there for you.
I'm a businessman. That's all I'm gonna say. All right. It's okay. So safe searches is
Like
one
a
way to do
mafia
it.
boss. I'm a businessman.
I know. And anyways, and different platforms, right? You could definitely, play to their strength. Like certain things are cheaper on eBay than they are on Poshmark. Certain things are cheaper on Poshmark, on Bonanza, on Etsy. There's definitely ways. There's certain platforms that sell things like Mercari. I'm just gonna throw out there. I think that's a sourcing platform that has not been tapped yet. Because 2 years ago when Mercari first came out, I sourced that thing like crazy. Like crazy, because all it was you didn't have like a lot of resellers or YouTubers talking about Mercari. All it was people at home, oh, that mug. And they would just take a picture of the mug and just post it right away. And I had some searches and I made some good money off of sourcing off Mercari. So it still might be. I just haven't touched Mercari in a long time.
Well, if it wasn't a thing, it is now.
Yes.
Because we've ruined it.
All our thousands of millions of listeners.
Our tens of listeners.
Hey, you know what? If we're in a place where we have tens of thousands, I'm good with that. We're okay.
Yeah.
Because
tell a friend.
It takes
a hustle podcast.
It takes a hustle to be willing to do it.
Yep.
Right? Now, being a keyboard warrior is a little easier.
No, that's not fair to say. It's not necessarily easier. I think it's different.
Okay. All right. That's fine. I'm still going back to like the Bose stereo. It's still in the back of my mind.
Yeah, that was messed up, man.
No, it wasn't. All right. Anyways, listen to a podcast 2 podcasts ago, how to make more money on garage sales. Okay. All right. Now, this is the common sense one, and I would say this is the easiest way to make a ton of money without going to thrift stores is garage and estate sales. Garage sales more than estate sales. Right? But and you should listen to our garage sale episode, but this is what I'll say. When you make an offer to get things, if there's a huge lot of items. So let's say, I don't know, let's throw out Rain Spooner because we say Rain Spooner. If there are 20 Rain Spooner shirts, okay, and they're trying to sell them for 15 each, and you're like, ooh, like that's like a thrift store price possibly. There's 20 of them. When are you going to come across 20 of them again? Buy them all. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, and bundle them and get them for $5 or $8 a piece. What if I take them all?
There you go. And if somebody gets there at the same time, it's okay for you to offer more. That's going back to the other podcast. Sorry. I just had to throw that in there. But you're trying to get to stuff before to make more money.
Before. You got to get there before.
Okay. All right. So garage sales. I got to tell you, it's only been a month of garage sales. I have enough to maybe list 500 items from just garage sales.
From just this month?
Just this month.
I'm doing it wrong.
I don't know if you're doing it wrong. I just think, I don't know what's happening. We haven't gone to garage sales together.
Yeah. It's all right. No, I'm doing okay on garage sales. I'm just not. Maybe I need to expand my search. Maybe I'm too narrowly focused. Maybe I'm not being flexible and fluid enough. That could be it.
It could be. I mean, part of it is, when you go to a garage sale, you have to be willing to buy more than just your niche.
Yeah. I mean, that's part of it. And the other part of it too, just to be honest, I've been a little bit lazy and I've been staying in my local area. I like to leave my house at like 6 or 6:30. I like to hit up all the areas around my house. And then I like it to be like 9 o'clock and be a few blocks from home.
And then be done.
And that could be part of my problem. I'm not willing to drive, an extra 20 or 30 miles, which maybe that's what I need to do. Different neighborhoods.
And I will say, and this is, I don't know, but I hit garage sales hard. Like I go from 6 a.m. till noon. Like, and just right now, it's not like that all the time, but when it's garage sale season, it's garage sale season. And if I can source enough where I don't have to step foot in a single thrift store for weeks, I will do it. Because you cannot beat the ROI.
Yeah, no, it truly is incredible.
So I would definitely strongly suggest and the reason I say this, because I know a lot of you don't do garage sales. I know some of you are in parts of the country that you can't do them year round. But if you're strictly a thrift store person and you really don't do, like I know a lot of resellers that are just like, we go to the Nike store, we just go to the outlets, or we just go to thrift stores. And that's totally fine. But I encourage you, especially if there's a community sale, go to that community sale go in with a positive mindset, have enough, money in your pocket to say, you know what, I'm going to see if I can get this trunk filled and then see if it's worth it to you. Cause I'm pretty sure if you get that trunk filled, you're going to be hooked. That's just my belief. I've been doing garage sales for close to, I want to say like 7 or 8 years consistently. And, there's those moments where I'm like, oh, was it worth my time? But more than ever now, even now, especially with the competition from thrift stores, garage sales have been the ultimate moneymaker for me right now.
It's good stuff.
So
I don't have, I know we're about to probably end this pretty soon, but I don't have a great quote of the week.
Oh, right. We didn't have one last episode.
No, we did. I mean, I gave somewhat of a quote. It wasn't like a legitimate perfect quote. And this one isn't either. It's a little different. I'm reading a book called Leaders by, I think it's General Stanley. Is it? I can't remember his last name. Anyways, it's an interesting book, and it goes through kind of like Plutarch's style of looking at two different leaders, combining their style or comparing and contrasting their styles, moving on to two more. And there's 12 total that he looked at. And one of the things
you got to I know Plutarch, who he was, but you got to define Plutarch.
So Plutarch went through a lot of the Greek and Roman leaders of the time and kind of compared them. So like it would take two mythical leaders or two famous generals and kind of compare like a Roman and then a Greek, and then like kind of talk about like what they had in common and how they worked and how they and that's kind of the style that this guy went through. And one of the things that he said that stood out to me was, oftentimes we look at leaders and they almost become like a myth. We end up thinking like we look so highly at them because biographers talk about all of the great things about them. They focus on just their accomplishments, and playwrights and people who tell stories about them romanticize the story. And so they almost become like mythological. And when actually looking at realistically what makes most leaders successful, there isn't like a set formula. It's not like what made a good leader in one situation, in one time frame, under one political system. That same person put in another situation might be terrible, right? Like they would fall apart completely. What made leaders good is that it was a person who understood the environment. They understood the people and the environment that they were in, and they adapted to that situation. And so I think that the same thing is true for reselling, right? Like what's going to make you a strong reseller isn't A plus B equals C formula, like do this, and you'll have this. But it's being a person who's willing to look at the current culture of reselling, look at the trend, look at those things, and be willing to adapt and be willing to say like what's working for me today might not be what's going to work a year from now. And I'm okay with that, knowing that I'm the kind of person who's going to be a successful reseller. And being a successful reseller means understanding and expanding my abilities and adapting to those situations. So I think that's going to be the key to us with thrift stores currently, because if I'm right, I think this is just a trend. I think we're eventually going to see, and it could be long-term, but I think we're going to see that thrift stores are going to say like, hey, we're actually losing money on this model, and we're going to revert back to a less expensive model.
Thrift store model.
Yeah.
There you have it.
It'll be a little thriftier.
There you go. Hey, so hopefully we brought you value. Maybe some of you that were experienced, touch base on some things that you haven't done in a while. Those of you that are new, we've given you some hope on, hey, you can definitely beat the thrift stores at their own game and make money and be profitable. So with all that being said, make sure you're being real,
be relevant,
and be reselling. Peace.